100 right there.
That's all.
Some more courses? No, I'm going to focus on stuff like that.
Obviously, each iteration through further into the process, so we'd really like to see the impact of our actions on the June 15th Board of Health meeting of a lot of organizations and staff. Yeah.
I'm Molly Vick, and I'm out here with Pound Oppose Trap as part of our progressive mobilization in opposition of the targeted regulations on abortion providers that is in the current process of moving towards permanent regulations that would put at risk most abortion clinics in the state, thereby limiting access and denying choice.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to stay behind, that's fine. We're not going to be staying. We want to cover the city. We want these everywhere. We've got a lot more than these, and we'll be trying to give them out along the way. So, grab them. Hopefully things get... Our first pit stop is here, of course, a building we're all familiar with, the Virginia General Assembly. It was inside these pristine walls over a year ago that trap regulations formally got their start. In January of 2011, the Senate introduced a bill called SB 924. Now, SB 924 was originally just a bill that had to do with hospitals and nursing homes, regulating the construction and maintenance of the facilities, staffing, operations, training, all that sort of thing. It had nothing to do with abortion until a woman named Delegate Kathy Byron came along. I think we're all familiar with her as well from this past year. She was the one that introduced HB 462, the mandatory vaginal ultrasound bill. So SB 924 easily passed the Senate Health and Education Committee. It passed the Senate itself. But as soon as it got to the House, Kathy Byron introduced an amendment to this bill that basically stated that any clinic that performs more than 5 first trimester abortions a month would be considered a hospital and would have to be regulated like a hospital. So the bill got through on a 20-20 tie vote. That's another familiar story. We've seen that happen a lot recently, including 2 Democrats, Senator Colgan and Senator Puckett, who voted to approve the new measure. And some of you may recall that we saw similar anti-choice stances from Colgan and Puckett this past year as well. Lieutenant Governor Bowling, of course, was the tie-breaking vote. The measure passed, and eventually resulting in emergency regulations for all abortion providers. And we'll hear a little bit more later about how these emergency laws were written and how the medical professionals that were asked to speak on them were completely ignored by the people writing the regulations. Trap regulations, I think as we all know, require clinics to spend large amounts of money on medically unnecessary and cost-prohibitive remodeling. And according to Paulette McElwain, President and CEO of Virginia League of Planned Parenthood, $4.6 million on renovations for her building still didn't meet these requirements. She said, "I think it's highly likely that most facilities in Virginia that provide abortions won't be able to meet them either, meaning they will have no choice but to close their doors." And before we move on, I'd like to leave you with one more quote. This is from Reverend Pat Mahoney, the director of the Christian Defense Coalition. He is quoted as saying, "This is what we've always maintained. We don't have to see a Roe versus Wade overturned in the Supreme Court to end it. We want to. But if we chip away and chip away, we'll find that Roe really has no impact. And that is what we are doing. They are trying to cut the legs off of Roe versus Wade by going after the clinics themselves. They say they want to make sure that abortions are safe, but they're already safe. They're already regulated. Closing abortion clinics actually does the opposite of what they claim that they want. And the true tragedy of this is, and anti-choice Republicans, I don't think would deny this, the tragedy is that closing abortion clinics will not lower the abortion rate. It doesn't make abortions disappear or prevent them from happening. It only results in more deaths of women who must seek abortions through other means, as they had to do before Roe versus Wade.
When it was 42% of the maternal death rate was illegal abortions. 42%.
No back alley abortions. Next up, and then here's my office. You might want to come up and visit me, but you're lowly citizens and you can't make an appointment. Where do I fit in with this process? Well, I, as Attorney General, use the law to do what I want. And what I want is to make sure that women don't have choice, that they're kept as mothers and breeders. And I do that all from this building. For 8 years, I tried to pass regulations. For 8 years, I tried to pass this. I wasn't so successful, but as Attorney General, I tried to bring it in the back way. Kind of successful, but then trap happened. And when the medical review panel came and said that clinics that exist now should be grandfathered in, I ignored that. I don't care. Like I said, I'm the Attorney General, and I use the law to do what I want. Fuck you! No, fuck you!
Matthew Cobb's office, as well as Dr. Hazel's here, right? Dr. Hazel, who's the Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Resources. They both live here during the day where they make really bad policy for the rest of us. And the key thing to understand in the draft regulation is first, the emergency regulations have passed to become permanent. They're being drafted by the Board of Health and then overseen by Matthew Cobb, who's the Deputy Secretary, to Dr. Hazel. And then it'll go through Matthew Cobb and then Dr. Hazel and then Cuccinelli, or maybe Cuccinelli before, it's kind of a mashup there, and then to the governor. And so there's a review process, but that means that on June 15th, they're going to vote. The Board of Health will vote on the regulations that they prepare, the current regulations. And then, if for whatever reason we're not successful in getting them to not vote on that and allow those regulations to expire, we actually do have another opportunity when it goes to the deputy or to the secretary, Dr. Hazel, and then Cuccinelli and Bob McDonald. So that's just an important thing to understand about the process. The other thing that personally I get really excited to think and talk about is the fact that there is a highly organized, generations-old machine of organizing that's come from extremely right-wing conservative folks. And a great example of the efficacy of the long-term vision building and organizing they've done is the fact that Matthew Cobb is sitting in the office that he's in.
That name sounds familiar, Graham.
Yeah.
Why do I know
Anybody
Cobb?
else know a Cobb out there?
It's mine, right?
Yeah.
Virginia Cobb.
Victoria.
Sorry. Who is in Virginia. She works in Virginia, and she's the president of the Family Foundation in Virginia. Hopefully, everyone's aware that the Family Foundation is a nationwide organization that is extremely right-wing and extremely organized and a major driver for a lot of the legislation that you see around the country, especially with anti-choice legislation.
And they don't like gay judges.
They don't like gay judges. They don't like all sorts of things.
And gay judges have too much of a bias against Other non-gays, I guess.
They want to stop straight marriage.
So, and Victoria Cobb actually posted on her blog that when Matthew Cobb was placed in the position he's in by Bob McDonnell, that they had staged a coup. That was her exact language. They had staged a coup to get Matthew Cobb appointed to the position he's in, where he now oversees the craft beer regulation and is going to make sure they're as strict as possible. So it's really important, I think, to be aware of these kinds of things. I wasn't a couple months ago. I really appreciate people who do really awesome research to figure out some of these things, and I've been doing it for a long time. But it's just a great example of what long-term vision building and organizing can do, no matter what side you're on. And I mean, they couldn't get things passed they wanted through legislation the normal route, so they took back alley routes to get what they wanted done, and it's a really effective tactic so far.
Also point out that they have no statistics that show that abortion clinics have any problems, any safety issues whatsoever. They're unable to provide any statistical data whatsoever to me. So
It's absolutely clear that the decisions being made, the regulations being made, are entirely political and have nothing to do with medicine or facts, or arguably what the majority of Virginians want. And what I really want to highlight beyond the fact that this is going on is that it's really like you can see the efficacy of long-term vision building and organizing. And we also, I think, all know that we've been playing defense for a long time. And defense isn't a fun position to play all the time. You have to play it sometimes, but when you're playing it all the time, it means you're not doing something long vision and quite, I would argue, quite right. And so it's a great example, and it's a call to action, I think, to all of us to be able to witness what's going on and the fact that we're having to waste a ton of our energy going on the offensive things like creating the change we really wish to see. But the only way to do that is to really think long term, to think about how do we keep our energy up long term, how do we organize together long term, how do we make our different struggles intersect. Because if we can get everybody who cares about progressive issues in general to show up to our event, and then we all show up at their event, and we all work together on the things that we all value. And maybe I'm not the most passionate about X over here, but I'm super passionate about Y here. If we can really start to organize and come together and think long vision, then it doesn't have to be nearly as much work to get nearly as much done. And long-term visioning is ultimately the way you create lasting change. So I think when you look at the right-wing engine that has been working and chugging along for the last 4 decades, you can see how they've really been pushing things in the direction they want. And I think we all feel like there's some good organizing and long-term vision building going on now in a different direction. And we just got to keep that up and really think long-term. Long term. And do the work now to make sure that work will continue to happen and that we can start playing offense again.
What do we want? Women's health, no compromise! Thanks, Grant. Suckers! I mean Virginia. I'm Bob McDonnell. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little tired. A bunch of crazy people have been singing outside my mansion lately, and I try to drown it out with Fox newscasts, but it's been hard to get some sleep. I've also been doing a lot of ducking and hiding. Keeping up my Mr. Nice Guy image while my buddies Ken Cuccinelli and Matt Cobb make an end run around Roe vs. Wade with the trap regulations in Virginia. Well, looking at the news, you might think I've been sitting back, twiddling my thumbs, brushing my hair, while these guys do all the hard work, but who appointed Matt Cobb? And most of those Board of Health guys in the first place? That's right, this guy. And you know, I've been fighting abortion my whole career. Just check my record. As member of the General Assembly, as Attorney General, and now as Governor, I've been finding ways to make it harder and harder for people to access abortion in Virginia. Long before anyone heard of a vaginal probe. As a Virginia Beach delegate, I supported over 35 bills restricting abortion access, even in the case of rape or incest. Yeah. I reinstated Virginia's partial birth abortion ban in Virginia. And before even then, since I was even since I was a young man at Regent's University, that's Pat Robertson's university, I spent a year drafting my thesis, which was entitled "The Republican Party's Vision for the Family." Where I proved that feminism is the real enemy of the family, and that unmarried couples shouldn't use contraception. It's in there. So that's what I meant when I said before that I consider it important to embrace a culture of life in our Commonwealth. TRAP's gonna put government money where it should be, into regulating life before birth. In the meantime, I'll be saving you the taxpayer money with a 50% cut to community health clinics and millions of dollars of cuts to Medicaid coverage.
Right.
So, Bob for VP, don't forget to vote for me.
It's really amazing when you start to actually, like Fred was saying, do the research and look at the facts. And just yesterday, talking to the media, I actually mentioned a few things, and two different reporters, one from the AP and one actually a political columnist from the Times Dispatch, asked me if I could send them my source, which I find very in public information.
So these are
so the education is definitely about things. So everyone did a great job. You know, the legislation was really snuck in. Which I have been trying to do it as an elected official. He tried to do it as a legal opinion as the Attorney General, and then they managed to do it through this back-end change. We hit on that. We hit on the Matt Cobb, Victoria Cobb connection, which, as you stated, they themselves involved in was too. But in terms of the hangers, which we're getting followed around for, and obviously it's been a symbol that's been used on and off at different times because what it does represent in terms of the fact that abortion doesn't go away, it makes abortion legal. Abortion's been around since the beginning of time. What goes away is safe abortion. That in fact, I think the problem is they have to go to the extreme of case. Now, talk about the fact that this is a long-term effort. People that are doing this, they acknowledge that. And they acknowledge that hangers are a known or believed risk. So I'm going to let Shelley speak. Do you want to break it up first, or Shelley speak it up first? Okay. I'm going to let Shelley speak momentarily, but first I just wanted to actually just use her own words because it kind of makes anything else that I would say is politically irrelevant. This was the Mississippi State Representative, Bubba Carpenter. Bubba. Speaking to the Alcorn County GOP on Thursday, some of you may have seen this. Matto had it up, like on the blog, just a video. The video's been pulled down, the code's still there, because the Alcorn GOP is claiming copyrights. They don't really want this one being seen. So if you forgive me while I just actually read this out. We have literally stopped abortion in the state of Mississippi. Everybody in the medical field knows how hard it is to get admitting privileges to a hospital. It's going to be challenged, of course, in the Supreme Court and all, but literally, we stopped abortion in the state of Mississippi legally without having to go through Roe v. Wade. So we've done that. I was proud of it. The governor signed it into law, and of course, there you have the other side. They're like, well, the poor, pitiful women that can't afford to go out of state are just going to start doing them at home with a coat hanger. That's what they've heard over and over. But hey, you have to have moral values. You have to start somewhere. And that's what we've decided to do. This became law and the governor signed it, and so to speak, and he thinks for one time they were the first in the nation in the state of Mississippi. And I think it's really important. Shelley will speak to the aspects of clinics, and we'll break out and talk about ways that everyone can get involved, getting up on the site, Pound Opposed Trap. If you're searching for it, if you're on Facebook, the page is just Opposed Trap. The events are out there. There's actually a very robust notes section that not everyone always goes in, but it talks about the law. It has the contact information for everyone who's on the Board of Health, which, like I said, these are appointees. These are just people like you and I, and they don't have the attention given to them, so I think giving them the special attention can be a really powerful thing. There's sample letters. There'll actually be additional sample letters coming out there very soon that fit the criteria for letters of the editor, which we've collected for pretty much every paper in the state. We're going to talk after Shelley speaks about the individual ways of mobilizing, here, together, separately, across the state, and then just, there's one date that you put on your calendar and you tell everyone you know, and then you come and you bring 5, 6, 7 people who may not know where you're going, but you make sure they're there, is June 15th, because this is a long process if we want to get everything that we can going into that date. June 15th is the date. One reason that we chose this date, like this Saturday, to get it out here, is the actual regulations, the draft regulations, are going to be released May 25th. So they are still in draft form, to the extent that they actually changed the common regulations that we last week. But they're still in draft form, and they get released on the 25th. And we want to have a lot of attention going into them when they're released, and looking at them closely. People watching for that. And then those are the regulations that will be voted on 3 weeks later at the Board of Health meeting on the 15th. And we will all be there, and you all will hear more about that.
Things that were said. The opposed trap page is extremely important. One of the most important things that everyone can be doing here is making this go viral. It's as strong as action as any. The action we did last week, which was to flood the Board of Health, was pretty successful. People were really excited about that, and we left the event up till June 15th. So that page is accessible with all the numbers, all the letters, all the addresses. So we encourage you to just continue that and share that. Like, if you don't see a physical action you can do, there's still something you can take part in every day. You can call as many times as you want. You don't have to call just once. Call. They have to record dissent, and they have to record that. Whether or not they do is regardless, but they're supposed to record that. Legal requirement. So I really suggest that changing your Facebook statuses, your Facebook pictures is really effective. Using pound opposed trap, the reason that we use that is because we wanted to have something that would go viral. So all of those things are really important. And there's one more thing I wanted to say. I think that's it for now, but I just wanted to stress the importance of making it go viral before June 15th, because it's really, really necessary. Thank you.
To just break into groups, and we're going to talk a little bit. We've got a month before June 15th, just under a month, and we've got a lot of time to really get this information out there and to really make June 15th happen and be a big deal. We have some ideas. You know, it could be letters to